And I keep trying to warn lefties. I keep trying to warn them. I get smeared as this radical dude. I'm like, listen, you're not going to like what happens when the other side, when your opponents start to realize that I'm not effective enough, because I'm going to get treated just like them. But it's an allegory for Trump as well. Jesse Kelly talks about this a lot. The guy that comes after Trump's who you should be worried about. If you're a lefty, Trump's a fucking lefty. He's a Democrat. Like, what are you really worried?
I don't know if I'd say that, but
he was a lifelong Democrat. I mean,
he's transformed the Republican Party to look like him, basically.
But what policies? Take away his characteristics. What policies do you think that Donald Trump has that are extremely right wing? Massively.
I don't really care if he's like right wing or not.
I
guess protectionism, right? But that's not really a right.
Joe Biden just put tariffs, like protectionism.
I don't like him on that either.
Right. So, like, I mean, Trump massively spent. He's not a fiscal conservative. Trump.
My issue with Trump is that I think he's a threat to democracy. Well, we might disagree on this.
We talk about that, but I'm talking policy-wise, right? Like, he flew the LGBT flag. He did great. He prison reform that Democrats couldn't get past, that all these left-wing activists wanted, he did. Like, much to the chagrin of actual conservative right-wingers are like, fucking Trump, he's not a right-winger, right? Like, that's what they're saying. And yet he's treated like the Antichrist.
Well, I don't think Trump has like strong policy views at all. I think
that's true. But that's what I'm telling. And people are like, he's a threat to democracy. What's he going to do? What did he do?
I think he's going to continue to erode the institutions of the United States of America.
And in what way? Did he do that in the first term?
Yeah, I think he did, right at the very end there, right?
So because he didn't accept what exactly did he do?
Well, he didn't accept the results of the election.
Okay,
right?
Just like Democrats in 2000.
No.
Why not? Did they accept the results?
Al Gore took it to court, and
right.
He lost the court case, and then he let.
So the courts were willing to hear his case. The argument could be made in the Trump case that the courts were unwilling to hear his case. For example,
well, they did hear his cases, right? No, they weren't just dismissed. Most of them were not just dismissed. Yeah, they were dismissed. Some of the cases were dismissed, and some of them were heard.
Most were dismissed for standing, right? And some of the ones that
was it standing?
Yes. That's why many of them were dismissed.
Or was it standing in the sense that they don't have standing, or was it standing in the sense that they didn't believe that there was evidentiary grounds to continue the case?
No, there were some cases that occurred. That's certainly true, but standing was certainly true. But let's look at the case in Georgia right now, for example. Like, let me just ask you point blank. If it turns out that evidence would occur that in one state that there were tens of thousands of ballots that were fraudulently cast for one candidate or another, would you agree that all of a sudden makes it seem less like Trump was a threat to democracy?
Well, it depends, right? Because he didn't have this information at the time.
Well, he did. He had, let me put it this way. He had at least allegations of it. So, for example, when he talks to Raffensperger and the famous audio that you hear where it says, I need you to find 80,000 votes or how many thousand votes, he wasn't saying make it up. He was saying there are hundreds of thousands of votes that there aren't paper ballots for. And all you need to do is find 70,000, and that would sway the state. That's what he's saying. Now we have just an audit here the other day of Georgia. What did they say in the audit? Yes, there are hundreds of thousands of ballots that we don't have digital records for, but there are paper, or you didn't see the paper. But trust us, they're there, but you can't see them. And yes, it turns out that we have to admit in this one precinct we looked at, there were thousands of times that ballots were double counted, but we're not sure if they were double counted just in the recount or in the general election. Now, every one of us should say, well, wait a minute. One precinct? You can't verify. You know that there were thousands of ballots double counted, and you're not sure whether or not that was just in the recount or in the election? That seems to be a question that needs to be answered. That doesn't seem to be anti-democratic to say, wait, what the fuck? Thousands of ballots.
But that's not just what Trump did, though, right?
Well, that's true.
Well, he also created the fake electors and submitted them to Congress and the National Archives.
He didn't specifically do that, and so what? That's happened in the past as well. It happened in Hawaii.
Well, he did, though, right? It was him and Ronna McDaniel did, right?
He personally?
And Ronna McDaniel testified. Well, not him personally, right? But
right. So what I'm saying,
but he worked with Ronna McDaniel to help orchestrate.
This is a potential legal. What do you think would have happened if the alternate electors would have been accepted? How do you think that would have went?
Well, I think he would have became. Well, actually, I don't think he would have became president because I don't think that Mike Pence has the power to throw out the electoral vote.
But let's say Mike Pence tried to do that. What do you think would have happened? What would have been the next step?
The Supreme Court probably would have said
no. The court would have been involved. In other words, it was a de facto, or it was a de jure court challenge. Well, is what it was.
So no, I mean it wasn't. I mean, I don't think that you can just like do that, especially since he knew, right? Because John Eastman, his lawyer, specifically told Trump that he So I've read the January 6th report. Well, I've not read the full report, but I've read some of it, and then I've also seen the hearings. But John Eastman expressly tell Vice President Pence's lawyer, "Fuck, I got the whole receipts on this shit, some of it."
But it just you don't have to. We can get to the specifics.
Trump knew that the courts weren't going to go along with his will. He knew that it was illegal for him to do this.
No, I don't think that's true. He knew that the courts wouldn't go along with the electors' business. Is that what you're saying?
Correct.
I think what would have that's probably true.
Because John Eastman told him it on January. John Eastman said to where the fuck was it? Okay, Greg Jacob. John Eastman told Greg Jacob that he knew that it was illegal, and he had informed the president as such. And well, if the president knew it was illegal for him to do this.
One of his advisors said that he thought it was illegal. Many people, for example, we could see that many news outlets, I could show you right now a clip of Van Jones talking about how this is the alternate electors theory in 2016, and this is what could be done, and this is a legal challenge. Sure, there is disagreement amongst legal theorists as to whether or not this is something that would be allowed.
Which lawyers... Sorry, go ahead.
What's it matter? Which lawyers? There are certainly people that were suggesting that this is something could have been done. And
John Eastman was, right?
Okay, John Eastman. So let's say that do you think, for example, that it's illegal to forgive student loan debt unilaterally?
Well, if the Supreme Court has said yes, then yeah, I think so.
Okay, but Biden still did it, and they said no. They said it was illegal. Then Biden did it again. So is that
what did he do it?
He did it in a different way.
It was a more narrowed,
sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so
if it goes, we'll see what the court says.
Wait, we'll see what the court says.
But he's not trying to remain in office. Right?
It's irrelevant. What you've just given.
Oh, it is.
It's irrelevant to the principle of if someone says something's illegal, then you can't do it and challenge the legal theory. That's irrelevant. This happens all the time. There are legal scholars that say all sorts of things. For example, bump stock bans, assault weapon bans, etc., etc. There are legal scholars. Theoretically, Biden could have an attorney, like his attorney, Merrick Garland, could go to him and say, "Hey, you can't do a bump stock ban. That's antithetical to the Second Amendment. It would be illegal." Biden could still do it. It could then go to the courts and the courts could overrule it. Would you say, Biden knew that he was taking an illegal action? Is that what you would say? Or would you say he said, "Hey, we'll take our chances in court. We'll see if the Supreme Court justice is great"? I know that's what you would say. You would say, "Yeah, of course."
I would have to, like, if he had, like, it depended on how widely he sought counsel. And then what the counsel specifically told him. Like, if like 5 lawyers told him no, and then one told him maybe.
The point is, the attempt was with the alternate electors. But he tried to remain
in office, right? That was the whole thing. He lost the election, and then he tried to remain in office.
That's not what was going on.
The big electors had.
That's not what was going on. The electors were an attempt to get the courts, particularly the Supreme Court, in a position where they had to look at the evidence of places like Arizona and Georgia. That's what was going on. Because he and anyone who has a remote understanding, and there's a lot of people that don't, because I talked to a lot of people that watch my show that were telling me things like this. Oh, remember when Texas filed a legal challenge to the election before January 6th? You remember that? There were people all over right-wing circles that this is it. The election's going to be overturned. I was like, not a fucking chance. Do you know the firestorm that would be created in this country if the Supreme Court said, actually, we looked at this and we're overturning the election? There would be fucking fire on every city in this country. Because it's the left that would be losing, and we know what they do. They go nuts, and they burn shit down like they always do. It would be fucking nuts. And I said the courts will take any out they have to not look at this shit and just be like, nope.
So far, well, you say, I mean, like, I wouldn't say that the left necessarily is equal with the right here. Like, I'm not against rioting. I'm not for rioting. I'm against, like, the BLM riots, for instance. I don't think that was good.
Which side in the past 10 years has had more political riots?
Probably like the left. I don't know, but like actually that's
probably
political violence.
Can you name the right wing ones?
Riots or violence? Because like there's a difference there, right?
Well, I would say riots, but even violence. Can you name the right wing riots?
Oh, I guess Charlottesville, right? But that
okay.
Would be,
and can you name another one?
Again, January 6th, right?
Okay, let me name the left wing ones. You ready? BLM Portland Day 1, BLM Portland Day 2. BLM Portland
that's all
Day
bad.
3.
I'm not going to defend that.
Oh, right. But what I'm trying to tell you is it's not even close. It's not even close.
There's a difference between looting a target and trying. Sorry, there's a great quote I heard. I think it was Sam Harris who said it actually. That there's a difference between looting a banana republic and turning your country into one.
Right. So like for example, if they would have burnt down the Capitol like they burned down the courthouse with BLM, then it would have been okay? That would have been less bad?
I mean, if they would have burnt down the courthouse, I'm sorry.
They did. Remember?
Oh yeah, they did attack the courthouse.
Right, and then Kamala Harris put a bail. Kamala Harris
supported
a bail fund the next day. Remember that?
Yeah.
Or how about this? Do you remember May 31st, 2020? You remember that day when a bunch of left wingers took Molotov cocktails and attacked the Secret Service in an attempt to break into the White House, harming dozens of officers, burning down a Secret Service guard station, only repelled because there was significant police presence there? You remember that?
All quite bad. I did.
Insurrection. How was that treated? How was that? Joe Biden. You know what Joe Biden did?
But none of these were by the president of the United States. And look, Trump. You say that he has this.
What January 6th?
President of the United States. Yes, Donald Trump is responsible for January 6th, right?
In what way?
He's the one who told all of his supporters to go there. He lied to them for months about the election.
He didn't lie. He thought he was telling the truth. A lie means that he...
Did he?
Yes. Do you think Donald Trump doesn't think the election was stolen from him?
Well, he has no reason to think so, right?
You might think so. He disagrees. So do millions of other people.
All of the people he's tasked with investigating this have told him that it's not true.
That's not true.
Everyone
says
that. Attorney General.
So I just want to be...
Okay, who?
So I just want to be clear. If I look up right now that there are lawyers that were with Trump then and still with Trump that said, yes, we thought there were significant challenges that we need to...
Like Sidney Powell?
It doesn't matter. You're saying everyone. That you're making you're an all-inclusive
people
claim.
He brought in from the outside. These were not people part of the campaign. These were not people part.
So I just want to be clear. If I could find anyone that was part of the campaign that said, yeah, we thought there were legal challenges.
Or Rudy Giuliani, right?
Now we're getting. So we keep hedging. If I could find another person other than Rudy Giuliani, if you want me to get it, I will. I'm just asking.
Trump's campaign manager, Trump's attorney general, and his data team all told him that he lost. They were all tasked with investigating this.
And what we can see is it's the same sort of rhetoric that comes from Bill Barr said he looked into all this. He didn't look into shit. We can see that when it comes to the ongoing trials in Arizona and Georgia. He didn't look into any of it. They just said, let's just move on. It's time to go. And they didn't look into any of it. For example, did you know in Pennsylvania after January 6th, the Superior Court of Pennsylvania ruled that mail-in ballots were illegal to the state constitution of Pennsylvania? Did you know that?
No. If they said that, I don't know. Was that the one case that Trump won?
There were several that he won.
Relating to this specifically.
Him winning is sort of a misnomer. There were several cases that were won about election issues. Now, let me fully disclose. The Supreme Court of Pennsylvania then overruled the Superior Court. But the mere fact that there were justices on the Superior Court that voted that way proves the idea that there were no legitimate challenges is nonsensical. Of course there were.
He lost 61 cases and he won one case. And it was not materially
I believe you're wrong about that it was just one case. And I just wonder if it goes the way it looks like it's going to go in Georgia and this evidence comes out that there actually were hundreds of thousands of ballots that can't be accounted for. I wonder what people will say. They've been so confident that there was nothing to see, that Trump knew he was lying and couldn't have believed. And everyone said there was nothing to see. I just want to know, would you start to question all of the supposed experts that said, trust us, we looked at everything, there's nothing to see? If it turns out, as it seems as it may, that this happened in Georgia, would that cause pause for you to say, geez, maybe I shouldn't have just said, oh, Trump had to be lying because every expert that looked at this said it wasn't possible? I'm just curious if you'll change your opinion on it.
If it turns out that in Georgia specifically, that there were these tens of thousands, or how many exactly? Doesn't really matter.
So
if there were enough votes to change the results,
hundreds of thousands are considered, is what they're alleging, that there are hundreds of thousands that they don't have electronic signatures for, or something like that.
Was that something that's generally required under Georgia law?
Yes.
Okay.
In fact, the audit was found illegal. The actual audit of was then audited itself and found to be illegal. Can you, for example, let me just ask you real quick, could you explain how a audit of the vote would end up entering votes multiple times? Can you explain how that would happen? This isn't like...
I don't know if it has or not, right? I'm not
that's absolutely true. Never just take my word for it. That's totally fair. Totally get that. But you could look it up. That's what just occurred. They had sort of a hearing where the auditors had to come talk about, and the auditors admitted that they found that the recounted ballots thousands of times. They don't know if that double counting of ballots occurred in the general election. That's clearly a question that needs to be answered. But the question is, how could this happen in a recount? Or in an audit? Because an audit should be even more careful. right? Because you're not under a time crunch. And the entire point of an audit is to make sure you have things right. So how could you double count thousands of ballots, thousands of them, and then drag your feet for a year? No, there's nothing to see here. You're not accepting the results of an election. And then all the people that were like, but wait a minute, this isn't adding up, the things we're seeing. And then finally they're like, yeah, okay, you're right about this. But still, you can't question anything. The only point I'm trying to make...
You can question it, right? But to immediately assume that, okay, well, because Donald Trump at the time had no reason to think that he hadn't won, right?
That's not true.
What I would say. And I would say that that's because...
He then and still thinks, but let's just say, we're spinning our wheels here. Let's just get to brass tacks. Did anything that... Donald Trump didn't order people to do anything on January 6th.
Let me give you an answer, because you asked me a question directly, and
okay.
I didn't... Okay. So... It would depend on exactly what exactly they find in Georgia, but also Georgia itself I don't think would matter, because that wouldn't be enough electoral votes to push it over.
That's true,
right?
But wouldn't it cause you cause for concern if we've been told for 4 years in Georgia there was nothing to see here, it's election denialism, and then it turns out that state would have been swung? Wouldn't that give you cause for concern in Pennsylvania, Arizona, Wisconsin, Michigan?
They're all of our states run their elections differently, though, in the U.S.
Well, that's absolutely true. But the point is, at that point, don't you think that would require like an absolute, complete, and thorough audit of every state that was close?
And it would be an independent commission or something to investigate.
Right. That's the point I'm trying to make. But let's just get to brass tacks. Like, did January 6th have any negative repercussions on Biden being able to institute his agenda when he was president?
I don't care about that.
Why?
What I do care about, though, well, I mean, I don't care about his agenda.
Yeah. Why do you care?
I don't think that's the
idea is what Trump did harmed democracy. And by democracy, what we mean is the people voted for Joe Biden. And so it prevented Joe Biden from instituting his agenda.
He demonstrated that he failed, right? He failed in his little coup attempt. That's what I would say.
How is it a coup attempt?
Because he's trying to remain in office illegally and prevent the peaceful transfer of power in the United States.
So just to be clear, an election challenge is a coup, or it's only a coup if the Democrats...
He can go through the courts. He can go through the courts.
Which is what he was trying to do.
And then he lost the court
Which is what he was trying to do.
Most of them, and he won one case.
Which is what he was trying to do with the electors. He was trying to get the Supreme Court to look at it.
No, you don't get to do that. You don't get to lose your court cases and then say, well, look, Mike Pence, I need you to throw out these electors and then bring in the fake electors.
In 2016, when several Democrats in the House refused to certify the electors, did they also engage in a coup?
No.
Why?
Probably not. No.
Why?
Because they're not the president of the United States. They're not trying to. They're not.
What does that have to do with it? If enough of them would have came together and done the same thing, they would have prevented Trump from being elected.
Well, then it might have been a coup, right? If enough of them did it.
So only if it was successful.
Well, it would be. Well, no, it would be attempt, right? But I don't think that.
So it was an attempted coup. These Democrats engaged in an attempted coup.
I mean, I don't know if you want to use the word coup in that sense, but
why?
Sure,
you used it with Trump. Okay, so then you don't find it odd that in 2016...
if they didn't have any legitimate reason to question the election, which they didn't, because 2016 election, there's no reason to think it was illegitimate, right?
Correct. So. All right. So then the greater question is this. I think that what happens is, what people have ignored is that actually, despite the fact that Hillary Clinton, quote, conceded the 2016 election and Trump didn't until a later date, Trump went through legal...
I mean, he still hasn't really, conceded it, right?
So what? Would it have been preferable if Trump would have came out the next night and said, okay, I lost.
No, I think it's preferable if he doesn't do all this stuff to begin with.
Let me just hear me out. If he would have said, okay, I lost, you're right. And then he instructed his FBI to use a dossier that he paid for to sabotage Joe Biden for 4 years, to illegally spy on him with FISA warrants, knowing that it was bullshit the whole time and was paid for by Trump, to raid the associates of Joe Biden in the middle of the night while they tipped off Fox News or Breitbart.
Is this the Mar-a-Lago raid?
No, this was like Roger Stone that got raided. To go after, to have sycophantic press release this sort of classified, I don't even want to say classified, the unmasking of people like his Department of Secretary of, what was it supposed to be? Flynn, that was coming in, right? That was unmasked illegally, was gone after. If he instead would have said, okay, I'll say that I've conceded the election, but all of my actions will suggest sabotaging the will of the people and the incoming president, including doing things like paying for information and having my FBI illegally spy on the incoming president. Would that have been preferable?
Well, I think that would be wrong behavior for sure, and there should be legal process.
That would be a coup. That would be a coup. That's what happened in 2016. And I don't recall hearing all of the people that talk about Trump being a threat to democracy saying anything. In fact, you could say, well, that was Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama, not Joe Biden. Oh, no. When we see from the emails that it was actually Joe Biden himself that suggested going after Mike Flynn using the Logan Act, an act that's never been used to prosecute one American. And yet they used that as a precursor to, again...
Well, I was going to say, do you want to walk through this entire thing? Because I don't know much about it, and you could just like lay it out to me, and we could go over it.
Sure, with the joke, I could do it. Yeah, I know.
We were way off, but
I could do it in 1 minute.
It's my fault too. So
Logan Act says that a private citizen can't interact with a hostile nation, basically, right? So I can't go and talk to the government of North Korea and say, "Hey, we'll do this." I can't do that. And the idea was, think about it, like the revolution. You didn't want Benedict Arnold's shit like that, right? That's it's never been used to prosecute anyone, though. And so the argument was, because Mike Flynn was the incoming national security advisor, he was talking to his counterpart in Russia. And what he said was, when Barack Obama put sanctions on Russia, he said, hey, don't worry about it. When we come in, we'll try to rehash our relationship. And for that, Joe Biden, and meeting with Sidney Powell and Comey and Barack Obama in the White House, and they were like, how can we go after him? And Biden said, let's go after Flynn for the Logan Act, because they unmasked Flynn's name, which should have been unmasked, and then they went after him with the Logan Act. And Comey's admitted in testimony that they went after it. They basically tricked Flynn. They made it seem like he was just cooperating and wasn't the target of investigating, so he didn't have a lawyer there, right? And that's
was it because of Russia, or was it because of Turkey, though? Because I remember, Russia?
I don't remember.
With Flynn, was he?
Yes.
Wasn't he working with Turkey though? Right.
There were allegations. There were allegations later, but that's not why they investigated him initially. Okay. Right. There were allegations that business dealings he had in Turkey. They unmasked him, and then you pursued an FBI investigation of him with the Logan Act, and that's what they charged him with. This is in addition to Barack Obama and Joe Biden being the vice president's FBI illegally spying on presidential candidate Trump and then the president himself's team. Right?
Was it illegal for them to do that?
Yes. They had illegal. They've admitted as such in the IG report and the Durham report that the FISA warrants they got on Carter Page were illegal.
Oh, maybe they were. They could be.
That's
I'm skeptical of the FISA system for sure. So
the point is, Hillary Clinton, who claims, I conceded, what she did was, and by the way, what was in your own words, can you tell me, what was the Russia investigation into Trump's team? What were they investigating?
Well, they were investigating because a number of different Trump associates had, I believe, ties with the Russian government. And they even had a meeting at one point. And what allegedly would these meeting trying to do?
Right? Because, like, you admit, you don't just investigate people for having associates. So what was the associates? What was the allegation?
Might, right?
No, we don't.
If there's a specific claim relating to that.
What was the claim? What was the fear?
Well, I don't know exactly. This is like you're way more knowledgeable about this.
I'll say this. Sure. You tell me if you think I'm accurately representing. They were afraid that he was going to try to get dirt on Hillary from Russians.
Oh yeah, I think that was it. Yeah. Well, there might have been other stuff too. I don't know.
But that was one of the central claims that they said. Do you know how the FBI sought to prove that?
No.
By Hillary Clinton working and paying a suspected Russian spy named Igor Dushenko to get dirt on Trump. Dirt that happened to be misinformation. In other words,
I don't think that this. I don't think that any of this rises to the level so far, though.
It's way worse because the difference is the Democratic will of the people in the 2020 election. They got Joe Biden. Now, I think a lot have buyer's remorse, but neither here.
And you got Trump too. What do you mean?
No, we didn't. We got 4 years. What was the biggest story in the country for 4 years?
Oh, you're going to say Russia.
Right. He was mired in investigation. His political capital was sapped from the day he stepped in the Hill. Right? Because all that mattered to the majority of the media, the majority of the narrative, and the ability for Trump to use his bully pulpit to get his agenda passed over and over and over was, he's an agent of Russia. He's being investigated as an agent of Russia. And then they said, oh, he obstructed justice in our investigation into Russia. And then they said, oh, we need to impeach him for that. We need to impeach him.
No, he wasn't impeached over that.
We need to impeach him for.
No, he wasn't impeached over that. He was impeached over Ukraine.
Right. He was impeached for phone
call.
Yeah, that's why he was
when he wanted Zelensky to announce an investigation into Biden in order to help him win the election.
Can you show me proof that it wasn't helping win the election?
Well, I don't know if that's a mens rea, but like presumably that would be the reason. Yes.
Okay, so let me ask you this: does that mean that if anybody who wants to do a quid pro quo that's in the executive branch using tax dollars to potentially benefit themselves, that's reason to have an investigation, possible impeachment?
Sure. Yeah.
That's what Biden did.
Oh, you're Hunter Biden laptop stuff. I've not researched that. It's entirely possible. Look, if he is guilty, that he should be impeached for that.
Isn't it odd that we see this stuff happen over and over again, and yet the FBI's reaction and all the investigators' reaction seem to be the exact opposite when it comes to the two sides. They're as careful as possible to protect one side, and they go after as strongly as possible.
The House is controlled. The House is controlled by the Republicans right now. They can investigate if they want to.
It's not a matter of Republicans versus Democrats. It's a matter of establishment versus people that are seen as outside the establishment. It's the same reason they smeared Jill Stein as a pro-Russian asset. Jill Stein's more left-wing than Hillary Clinton.
Well,
she was smeared as
what do you mean? Like, what do you mean? Like, Louder Milk right now is doing his little January 6th thing, right?
And
that's totally fine. That's over. Well, except I think he's been dishonest in some ways.
But
regarding the Ornato testimony, he misrepresented that to the public.
The point I'm trying to make is, like, it's clear that when it comes to the democratic will of the
people,
when it comes to the democratic will of the people, they got Joe Biden.